flag that in case you guys see it.
Who would that be dispersed through
What's that?
the Green Innovation Fund?
It creates a green ribbon commission to develop the green innovation fund, but it will ultimately be administered via WEDC and DA. But the whole commission is going to develop what that looks like, because obviously there are miles in terms of what a green bank, the green bank is. Yeah, other states have developed them. Several years ago. Putting together
Legislative sign off, or can you just do that?
just an executive. Yep. Yep. Cool. Cool.
morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Merhoff. I'm the business manager for International Union Painters and Entrees Sister Council 7, representing members, 2,000 members in manufacturing, decorating, and finishing trades in Wisconsin and the UK. I would like to welcome you to our training center here in the Madison area and to support with roundtable discussion on federal funding opportunities and the strong local partnerships needed to build careers in construction in Wisconsin. Thank you to our partners, the Green Alliance, for working hand in hand with our council to put together this event in what I see at the beginning of a much larger and critical collaboration to bring good jobs in infrastructure and long-term careers in the construction industry. As you can see, we have a host of mayors and other stakeholders in the room to discuss the opportunities for Wisconsinites in infrastructure funding through the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the Inflation Reduction Act, and the CHIPS Act. State and city leaders are well positioned to act as conveners, advocates, and innovators, catalyzing stronger collaboration among local governance, business, education, and training providers, local workforce development boards, labor unions, labor management partnerships, faith-based organizations, philanthropy, and other community-based organizations. Our union brother, our General President, Jim Williams, is supposed to be here this morning. Unfortunately, they will make the event due to an illness. But on behalf of President Williams, it's now my humble honor to introduce our governor, Tony Evers. Before he comes up, let me say a couple words. Governor Evers knows IUPT and the impact that we have on workers and families in the construction industry. He has toured our training centers in Pittsburgh and Big Bend multiple times. He understands that in an industry that we must pay close attention to worker safety and exploitation. In fact, when he tasked his administration with establishing the payroll, fraud, and misclassification task force in April 2019, he appointed our own governor, first director, Andy Butt, to serve on the task force. And when Governor Evers had to make tough decisions during the pandemic, he consulted with IUPAT TC7 leadership on how to move the construction industry forward. So without further ado, can we get a warm welcome for our friend and our governor, Tony Evers.
Thanks for the introduction. I want to thank the folks first at the Green Alliance and all the organizers who put on this event. It's a great opportunity to connect with partners at every level. Our local officials, our government, and labor advocates who could discuss and collaborate on how we can make best use of the billions of federal dollars coming to our state to help us meet clean energy and workforce goals. Long said, and I think most people here would agree with this, that we don't have to choose between protecting our environment and mitigating climate change and good paying jobs and economic development. We can actually do both. Whether it's updating our infrastructure to be more resilient, investing in emerging technologies like EVs, making sure we're using most sustainable practices in industries like construction and manufacturing, or creating new opportunities for emerging clean energy sectors like solar. This influx of federal funds will play an essential role in this work. And it's our responsibility to make sure that we're using these funds wisely and with long-term success in Wisconsin and more. But thankfully, we're always starting with doing a good quality. Transitioning Wisconsin to a clean energy economy has been a priority for me since I've been elected governor. We joined the U.S. Climate Alliance and our state's first created and set our state's first carbon-free electricity goal to creating the governor's climate change task force and developing a clean energy plan. A clean energy plan serves as a roadmap for our state's transition to a robust clean energy economy, including paths to lower energy bills for Wisconsin families, promoting our state's energy independence, and creating an estimated more than 40,000 jobs by 2013, and investing in job training and apprenticeship programs in the clean energy economy. By 2020, the 2023-25 biennial budget builds on this work by moving several of these initiatives forward, like investing $10 million in clean energy job training and reemployment for folks joining this workforce. And earlier today, we are thrilled to announce our newest Green Bank initiative, which will allow us to utilize federal and private funds to to jumpstart and support innovative clean energy projects right here in Wisconsin. This is about building the 21st century infrastructure workforce our state will need to compete and grow for years to come. Our budget expands infrastructure and to improve water quality, expanding job opportunities, clean energy and forestry, while improving the health and wellness of our state's families. To make progress on these initiatives, we need partners committed to this work at every level across the industry. That's what today's discussion is all about. So I personally look forward to hearing from all of you on how we can work together to reach our goals in this area. So thank you very much, and I'm turning it over to
All right, next we will have Political Organizing Director with Wisconsin Conservation Voters, Mr. Casey Hicks, come up and speak.
Hello, good morning. I feel incredibly excited to be here with all of you today, with Governor Evers, and all the amazing mayors and union leaders from across the state. My name is Casey Hicks. I'm Organizing Director for Wisconsin Conservation Voters. Our mission is to engage voters to protect Wisconsin's environment, and every single day our organizers are doing that on the ground with activists, local electeds, many of whom are in the room here today with us, organizations, and our members to carry out clean energy campaigns at the local level. And so it's from that experience that we know that every single Wisconsinite is experiencing the impacts of climate change right now. And the fact that right now so many people are in danger of flooding in this moment, it brings me back to 2019, when my partner Megan and I found ourselves at the edge of a flood evacuation zone, living close to the East River in the pier. And we were deciding that night, are we going to stay in our apartment or are we going to try to stay with a friend? And that's really not an uncommon story anymore in Wisconsin, because as we find ourselves right now at the risk of flooding, only a week ago, so many people in southern Wisconsin were at extreme risk of wildfires. And when I go to my alma mater, UW Green Bay, and I walk along the Arboretum Trail, and I'm taking in the sights, and I look out on the Bay of Green Bay in June, and I see a blanket of blue-green algae. I know that folks in Madison are oftentimes seeing the same things, looking out of Lake Mendota. But we're not just seeing unsightly things in our environment, we're experiencing the overall health implications of climate change too. In Milwaukee, asthma-related ER visits are double that of the state average. And as temperatures increase, so do mosquito and tick populations and the potential for more cases of Lyme disease. So we're feeling the real world consequences of years of inaction, but I feel incredibly hopeful being here in this room today with all of these leaders who, this is not their first time taking action on climate change, and it's definitely not going to be the last. Because for years they've done so much with so little to make good on their commitments to clean energy, to invest in carbon reduction, and make their communities healthier, safer places for people to live and work in while investing in good family supporting jobs. And so imagine how much more they're going to be able to do in these coming years with the historic opportunities that we have before us with the bipartisan infrastructure law and the Inflation Reduction Act. That's funding that cities are going to be able to use to invest in green infrastructure, to reduce flooding, that counties will be able to use to write long-term clean energy plans that reduce their carbon footprints and save taxpayer money. And it's dollars that school districts can put to work retiring their diesel bus fleets to purchase electric buses that cut their carbon emissions and protect our children's health. So the opportunities are limitless. We have so much to take advantage of with the money and funding and resources that's coming into Wisconsin, and I have full confidence that we're going to be able to leverage that. So thank you, and happy to be here today.
Next, we will have Madison Mayor Rose Conlon.
It's really a pleasure to be here. I want to start by thanking our hosts, IUPAT. Thanks for letting us use this space, and I also want to thank the Blue Green Alliance, and of course, Governor. It's always great to share stage with you. You know, this actually feels a little bit like coming home to me because, first of all, I'm a proud member of AFT Local 223, so I'm always happy to be here with my union siblings, but also because about 18 years ago, my second job in the state of Wisconsin was to help organize the Apollo Alliance, which is a precursor to the Blue Green Alliance. And so over the years when I worked at UW, at COWS, I had the pleasure of working with folks in the environmental movement, in the labor movement, in community, to work on climate change and environmental issues. So I'm really glad to be back working again with the Blue Green Alliance and to know that that fight is still happening and that we're still in it together. And you know, I am so excited to be able to talk again about the work that we are doing with the bipartisan infrastructure law, the Inflation Reduction Act, and of course the American Rescue Plan. And those bills from the federal government have been absolutely transformational for the city of Madison. And I'm really delighted to have a chance to, again, share some of the experience that we've had here in Madison. Just one example, after 30 years of talking about bringing rapid transit to our community, we broke ground on a bus rapid transit system for Madison this January. And it will be all electric, and it will be all electric because of the bipartisan infrastructure law and because of the support from the federal government and the Federal Transit Authority. We could not have gotten that project done without President Biden's help. And so these bills are making real differences in our communities today, and they will make real differences in reducing climate emissions for years, decades into the future. We're going to be able to provide more frequent and reliable service for riders to connect them with jobs, and those 46 electric buses will improve air quality and reduce our carbon pollution. And those infrastructure improvements are accompanied by good paying union jobs. From the LIUNA workers who will be building the bus rapid transit system to the Teamsters who will operate it, it's all happening, again, thanks to the unprecedented levels of federal investment we're seeing in infrastructure and in our communities. So I am so excited to be here celebrating these bills and talking about how we can take advantage of the federal funding to improve our communities and to fight climate change today and for decades to come. Thank you.
Next, we have Mayor Corey Mason from the City of Racine.
It's always hard to follow the mayor of Madison. So I'm Mayor Corey Mason from Racine, Wisconsin, and happy to be part of this discussion of what this federal legislation means for Racine and for the state of Wisconsin. But really, just to echo some of Sati's comments, look, there's really two people who deserve a lot of credit around the work we're able to do, and that is President Biden and Governor Evers. Without their leadership, our ability to execute on what we've been able to do here would just be much harder. I will say I've been in these conversations for about 20 years, the Blue Green Alliance, of what it would look like for environmentalists and labor to join forces and do the work of rebuilding our communities and doing so in a way that will save the planet and address climate change in a real and meaningful way. And we have come a long way. I can remember some of those early conversations 20 years ago, and there was some skepticism initially about what that would look like and what it would mean and how we would do it. So when I think about those early conversations to where we were 20 years ago to where we are today, where really we have the tools that really incentivize investing in organized labor and investing in local workforces. And so for a community like Racine, which used to have far more family supporting jobs than it used to, not only is this an opportunity to build labor, not only is this an opportunity to rebuild our community, not only does this help us save the planet and reduce our carbon footprint? This opens up a number of jobs to local residents to get into family supporting wages, to get into those apprenticeships, and it'll make a substantial difference. There are so many great things to talk about here, but there are still challenges ahead of us that we hope to meet. So here in Racine, I'm happy to at least say at this moment, we have more electric buses as a percentage than Madison does, but soon to be outdone, which I'm thrilled to hear. 40% of our bus fleet is currently all electric, and we're thrilled to have been able to do that. But we're, like many other communities, we're gonna build, we're the biggest community in the Midwest without a federally qualified health clinic. And so we are going to build one in Racine, and it will be the first net zero building in the city of Racine. We could not do that were it not for the help of the Inflation Reduction Act and the support we received from the governor through ARPA funds, and really the commitment of a lot of people in this room. I mean, I'm so excited to work with IUPAT and their blazing perspective and learning how the Inflation Reduction Act can help with window treatments and make sure that they're more energy efficient, and how that helps pay for the building. And this one project that we're looking at doing to provide a health clinic to our community. The Inflation Reduction Act is worth literally millions of dollars to help build that facility and to build it green. So there is much to celebrate. Again, challenges ahead of us, right? I mean, we are seeing climate change impact our communities every day. We had huge storms recently that have really impacted our lakefront. We know that climate change's impact are going to have to be addressed at the same time we're trying to reduce our carbon footprint. We know the work of environmental justice is critically important, and that the extra step, the worthwhile step of making sure the neighborhoods most impacted by climate change should be first in line to receive these sort of impacts. We're going to need to do the work to make sure that labor and environmental groups can work hand in hand and have real success here. These are challenges, but we are better poised than we've been in a generation to address them. And I'm so thrilled to be able to champion the Inflation Reduction Act and ARPA, and to work with amazing other mayors who teach me every day their great ideas. We are so blessed to live in a state with Governor Evers and in a country with President Biden. Thank you.
Next we have Green Bay City Mayor Eric Gummer.
Well, thanks so much for having me here this morning. A lot has been said, so I don't want to rehash those great comments. But as somebody who's born and raised in Green Bay, who's fortunate enough to serve as Green Bay's mayor at this point, the Blue-Green Alliance is really something that comes naturally to our community. Green Bay is a very working class town. Unions built the middle class in Green Bay and across the state and across the country. But the roots really run very deep in the city of Green Bay. And we're also located at the center point of the largest freshwater estuary in the world. Casey was talking about the impacts of runoff on the Bay of Green Bay. We've got the Fox River, the East River, and the Bay that are just amazing natural resources for us. And so, as mayor, the blue and the green are incredibly essential to the work that we've been doing. So we've put in place responsible bidding standards for all the contractors that we work with within the city. We've also put in higher standards within our TIF agreements to make sure that people are following environmental and labor laws when they're doing work on these projects that receive public funding. We also have a resiliency coordinator for the first time in the city's history, who just last week was on the line with Governor Evers' staff talking about some of the funding that's going to be coming down to actually implement our comprehensive clean energy plan. That's only possible because of state funding through the Public Service Commission. So that blue and that green, it comes naturally to us in the city, but this is a really unique point in I think our city, our states, and our nation's history, that really all of these things are coming together. We actually have the resources to make that alliance real. And just to emphasize what Mayor Mason had said about the leadership that we're fortunate to have within the state of Wisconsin. I personally have been in politics for some time, kind of old now, a couple decades, and we really never had this level of cohesion from the White House down to City Hall. With President Biden's leadership, with all the work that Tammy Baldwin has done for my community and communities all across the state and country, Governor Evers' incredible leadership and his administration and their willingness to lift up the work and make real the work that we're doing every single day at the local level. It's inspiring to me as somebody who really believes in public service and public policy. So just incredibly enthusiastic to join you all today to make real this alliance that's been in the works for some time. The last thing I'll leave you with is just, I read an article by Bill McKibben just yesterday, published in Mother Jones, and he's somebody that's very well known throughout the environmental movement, and he was just really making the point that it's important for environmentalists to make a little bit of a philosophical shift. I think a lot of folks within that movement have been on the defensive, have been saying no to a lot of bad things that have been coming down the pike for some time. Now, I think all of us have to be prepared to make good things happen, to make positive, clean energy infrastructure happen, to make transportation infrastructure possible. And so I think it's incumbent upon all of us to really make that shift. And the people that are going to be able to make those technologies real are the people that are being trained in this facilities like it, all across the state of this country, all across the state and the country. So I'm prepared to move in that direction. I think everybody on the stage is obviously similarly positioned. So just very enthusiastic about the path that we're on, and thrilled to be able to join with you all today.
Next we have Appleton Mayor Jake Woodford.
Thank you, everybody. It's an honor to be with all of you. And as Mayor Gendrick was speaking, I was just thinking about the ways our communities are connected via the Fox River. And something that we talk a lot about in our community is that the decisions we make and the things we do affect the communities downstream from our community. And I think the more we recognize that our communities are interconnected environmentally and economically, it would be wise for us as communities. So when we think about becoming a salt-wise community, which we have in the city of Appleton, where we're reducing our use of salt on our roads, that has an impact not only in our community and for our operating budgets, but also for the communities downstream, like Green Bay and our neighbors on the Great Lakes. I want to start off by thanking the governor for his leadership in focusing on providing additional resources to local communities across the state. And that really does take leadership. When the state received resources, they had choices to make about how they would deploy those resources. The governor had choices to make about how he would direct those resources. And he took the leadership step of focusing on getting resources back out to communities, whether it was helping small businesses and communities or providing resources for infrastructure improvement, helping our communities get through the worst of the pandemic. So I just want to thank the governor for his leadership. Thank you. Appleton is proud to be a leader in protecting the environment and reducing our impact on the environment. We're focused on dispelling the myth that reducing our impact on the environment and our operating expenses are mutually exclusive. Reducing operating expenses are mutually exclusive. We believe, and we've demonstrated, that we can reduce our impact on the environment and reduce our operating expenses as a city. And we've done that through a number of investments in clean energy and also in the simple stuff. And the stuff that's maybe not as flashy, but is really important. Just changes in our buildings, changes in the way we design our HVAC systems, changes in the way that we light our buildings, makes a huge difference. So while the large scale, clearly visible projects that people tend to gravitate toward on environmental impact are important, what's also important are the ways we design our buildings and keep our spaces moving. We've also invested as a city in stormwater infrastructure and our resiliency as a community. This is so important as we experience more extreme weather events, and whether you believe that climate change is real or not, which by this point the evidence is clear it is, regardless, it's impacting our communities. These events are impacting our communities. But as mayors, we know what it takes to get things done on the ground. It takes really two things. It takes the resources to get things done, which I've talked about, but it takes the people who do the work to get it done. The resources, the money's just money. It takes activation, and that's why labor is so important. None of this work in the Infrastructure Law, Inflation Reduction Act, ARPA, will be possible without quality labor to do the work. And that's why I'm so proud of our partnerships with labor up in the Valley, and honored to be here and talk about the connection between labor and the environment, and the ways we can work together and collaborate to reduce our impact on the environment, move our communities forward. So thank you so much for having me. Look forward to the conversation.
Next we have Sheboygan Mayor, Mr. Sorensen.
All right, good morning, everybody. Mayor Ryan Sorensen here from the Malibu of the Midwest. You know, Sheboygan is known as the Malibu of the Midwest for many reasons, but first and foremost is that water is the cornerstone of our community's identity. And the next cornerstone for a strong foundation of community is labor. Folks from Sheboygan County, we know that Sheboygan County is a strong labor community as well. Right now, as my fellow mayors have said, that there's just a tremendous opportunity for local communities to take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime funding to make sure that we can build our communities so much stronger. From the American Rescue Act, from the Infrastructure Bill, to the CHIPS Act, to the Inflation Reduction Act, the fire hose, the water's coming out, and especially for smaller communities like Sheboygan, it's vital that we create strong partners from our folks in labor, to developers, to communities across the state so that we can take advantage of these strong projects. Now, Sheboygan, we have some awesome projects coming down the line as well. Working with Senator Baldwin's office through the Infrastructure Act, we got a $6 million grant to build a pedestrian bridge right on our riverfront. Well, pedestrian bridge might not seem like a big impactful project. However, it creates and connects two economies on our waterfront, but also revitalizes and cleans up a former historic industrial site along the riverfront as well. So it's not only cleaning up the environment, it's also spurring economic activity and also making sure that we're increasing pedestrian activity as well. So we have large projects like that, and we have smaller projects through a lot of these opportunities as well to impact and institute some things that might not be as popular or get as much flashy attention like the complete streets policy. Now, like I said, with Synergy, we're stealing some ideas from our fellow mayors and how Sheboygan's implementing some of those. So just making sure that as leaders, whether you're in government or in labor, that we're all collaborating together to create stronger economies and making a stronger Wisconsin as well. So I just want to give a few shout outs as well, since I'm the last mayor speaking. We have 3 mayors here, just want to celebrate, that just got sworn in for their second terms yesterday. Just want to give a shout out to my friends Karen Mason, Sassy Rhodes Conway, Eric Enrick for coming down on their first full days of their second term. So, thanks everybody.
Next we will have City of Eau Claire Deputy City Manager and Engineer Dave Solberg.
Well, thank you, everybody. I have a little different perspective with the bipartisan infrastructure law and ARPA and the Inflation Reduction Act and probably our elected officials. I'm in the trenches every day trying to keep our infrastructure going for the city of Eau Claire. In addition to helping as deputy city manager, I'm the city engineer for that. And I can say with the finances that local units of government have been put under in Wisconsin with levy limits, with a few tools to raise revenue to try and keep our infrastructure going. Grants like these and programs like these are essential for our cities and our villages and towns and counties to keep up with our infrastructure, or even try to keep from falling behind with that. A couple of examples that we have in Eau Claire. We made the news about a year ago with PFAS, and now we have a $24 million remediation, PFAS remediation for our drinking wells for the entire city, and we are using some of our ARPA funds that were allocated to try and meet that need. Without that, the only way we can rectify that need that we have is with passing those costs on to the taxpayers, and in essence being another tax. So we're extremely grateful for those funds, but then also about a month ago, we made the news again, we have one of our historic bridges had a big hole in it. And we've been inspecting it year after year, and we had section loss. We had a hole about the size of a trash can lid, came through on it, had to shut the bridge. we inspected it, and we were able to shift traffic out on it. And this is a bridge that we had struggled with in the past as a city. It had been as early as 2016 we had an estimate to do some rehab on it for $2.5 million. And in relation, we spent about $6 million on our entire street projects a year. And that was a budgetary constraint that we weren't able to take on for an intensive rehab. So we're working through the process, and now we have a $13.5 million cost for that to replace it. So with the lack of being able to raise revenue at the local level, short of referendums and other not very desirable outcomes, money from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act is essential for us to help, fix our bridges. And I'm grateful to Governor Evers. They've about doubled the amount of money coming through WISDOT in the local road program and the local bridge improvement program to help communities like ours. And in addition to that, I'll put my dad hat on when we have these programs and these projects coming through. I have a son. I went to college. I have a son that has no interest in going to college or going to even the technical school. So he's checking out the apprenticeship program through the local contractor in Eau Claire. And we try to promote that with the city of Eau Claire as well, with the forestry program, with the streets program. In engineering, we try to have young workers come in up to 3 of them a year. So this money will go to help not only create jobs, for working class families, but it also helps train and get the next generation of good paying jobs for those people that just don't see the same career path in education that some of us may have seen them absolutely have some jobs ahead of them for that. So thank you for having me today, and it's a pleasure to be here.
All right, our last speaker to conclude the press conference will be former DNR Secretary and current City of Milwaukee Director of Department of Administration, President Clark.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of Mayor Cavalier Johnson, I bid you a sunny, rainy day. But in this room becomes this light of the direction that we're going, the light of folks in this room turning the tide and making sure that union labor has not only a seat at the table, but is at the table leading efforts on workforce development across the state of Wisconsin. The reason that Milwaukee continues to be open for business, much like many cities, towns, and villages who are represented by their mayors today, is the work that union labor does each and every day to provide safe and hospitable environments, to make sure that our roads are paved, our plumbing is in good order, and the like. As a son of Oscar Travis Cole, union steward in the auto industry in Benton Harbor, Michigan, and a welder himself, I speak on behalf, in my DNA, is union leadership. In order for us to change the tide on the environment, for those who had properties on Lake Michigan 15 years ago, the shoreline is probably a mile out. Today, that shoreline is probably in your basement right now, all because of the act of climate change. So when people come to Wisconsin and get into the outdoors, they head to a number of places. But think about our cold water streams that have seen that increase in temperature by 2 to 3 degrees. So when you fish for trout, a cold water stream needs to be cold. Those temperatures are rising, the production on those estuaries start to diminish, and people don't come here to spend their money at that. Here's what's at stake relative to tourism, whether it's in Milwaukee, Madison, True North. What's important about paying attention to not only the workforce, but our environment. It's getting to be at a point now, folks, that because of the efforts that Governor Evers has led, the money, the energy, and the effort on protecting these resources is important to protecting our economy. A multi-billion-dollar industry when people pick up a newspaper, whether they're in Illinois or Indiana and Minnesota, they want to come to Wisconsin because we have something very special here that needs protecting. And we need people to do that protecting. So in Milwaukee, for those individuals who are doing their lateral repair and putting in new pipe, quite frankly, folks, we see them as public health officials. These are folks being able to put to work the energy and effort to provide a healthy environment in the homes throughout Milwaukee. And we cannot do it alone. These individuals will get the training that they need, but we're also trying to identify this whole healthy home, where we can pull the people who are doing lead remediation. You hand those lists over to the Milwaukee Water Works to drive their work to do lead removal on that house that just had the paint remediated. If we can put families in those homes, stabilize those neighborhoods with good jobs and healthy environments, there's nothing that we can do in Milwaukee, in Madison, in Appleton, in La Crosse, each and every day with leadership like the folks that are standing behind me and sitting behind me. So again, I stand with our mayor who believes that there is a there in a city of neighborhoods, a robust economy, a world-class city, a major league city. Folks, the workforce of tomorrow are going to be trained by folks who have the energy and the vision to create job training facilities just like this. So, on behalf of the mayor, on behalf of these officials behind me, there is nothing that we won't do to energize the economy around training people to change their lives, to improve our energy, our outcomes, our economy, and our environment with union work. Thank you, folks.
All right, that concludes our press conference. We will now begin taking questions from the press.
A couple questions for the governor.
Please.
Thank you. So the Assembly yesterday approved essentially a ban on bans. So municipalities can't ban appliances, essentially like gas appliances, for example. Do you have a sense of whether you'd sign that bill?
I haven't seen it, but banning bans seems counterintuitive just to a common person like me. So I'd say that we'll take a close look at it. I have not seen it, but there's a starting point, and banning bans is not a really good starting point.
We've seen also a couple of Republican competing proposals on tax cuts, one a flat tax, one that would have two tax brackets. Do you have any sense of whether you'd support that kind of tax cut?
I haven't seen the most recent one and looking forward to it. The bottom line for me always has been and will be, we need to have an income tax cut for the middle class in the state of Wisconsin and not a flat tax. And so I'm not sure how close this one comes to a flat tax, but I guess it's really close. With that said, I throw out, I have a good proposal. I want to see what the Republicans are going to come up with, the bottom line, whether this is their answer or not. I can't tell you whether that is their final proposal because they seem to be having one every day.
As we can hear outside right now, you signed an executive order declaring an emergency related to flooding in the states. Do you have any sense of what kind of resources would go towards that?
Well, yes, the National Guard I know is already involved with sandbagging in central Wisconsin, west central Wisconsin, and the resources of the Wisconsin Emergency Management Group is on ground, working with people to make sure that the cities and municipalities are safe. So we'll continue to monitor it, but the help is already there with several places in the state.
And curious too, just from my recollection, these are some of the more recent executive orders declaring an emergency since the Palm decision. Do you have any sense of whether that Palm decision from the state Supreme Court kind of affects like how you declare these emergencies at all?
I have to say that you need a microphone. I didn't hear the question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can take that one for you, Will. I
Okay.
can follow up with you on that one afterwards.
Can
Okay.
you answer the question for me? Thank you.
I'll say, so it's the Palm decision, the state Supreme Court decision, essentially limiting the declarations of emergencies that you can declare. Like you can't have the successive ones. Does that weigh in on your factor how you declare these emergencies?
No, we make those decisions on the status on the ground. We have people calling us saying, we need help sandbagging. This is not a real high-tech issue. And we connected with our National Guard, and they said, yes, we have people available and ready to do that. So we're listening to people on the ground and not worrying about the Palm decision. We have an emergencies all across the state. Some of these mayors are dealing with it here, and we'll respond in the best way possible.
I had a question that said just from a reporter for Wisconsin Watch, who was watching the live stream. They asked yesterday, the JFC Watch funded 5 projects including Pelican River conservation, a state or admin would be within its rights to allocate the money anyway, so what's next?
I'm not sure what's next. We're taking a look at that. Obviously, we're disappointed in the Joint Finance Committee response, and why it took so long, why it's a secret process, and then suddenly a decision is made. That said, we're looking at alternatives, but at this point in time, we cannot answer that question with specificity.
Thanks, everyone.